it's Marion again, and this time I am going to be teaching you a little bit about short and long multiplication. Now, if you're in some of you in year 3, but about year 4, and certainly in year 5 and 6, then you really need to know how to do these. And if you haven't yet quite got to them and you haven't done the grid method first, can I suggest that you go back and do the grid method before you do this? Because that really helps to understand how you work with multiplication. So I'm going to teach you both. So it's going to be quite a quick run through of multiplying a 2-digit number by a 1-digit number, which we call short multiplication, and then a 3-digit number or a 2-digit number by another 2-digit number, which we call long multiplication. Both are quite straightforward once you get the hang of it, but it's really important to follow the steps that we do. I quite often say to the children that I teach, it's like doing a recipe in the kitchen. If you don't follow the instructions, then you end up with a bit of a disaster of a cake with a soggy bottom or a burnt top or something like that. You have to follow the instructions in a recipe. And it's exactly the same with maths. As long as you follow the instructions and do it exactly as you should without trying to cut any corners or do anything in your own kind of funky way of doing it, then you should end up with the right answer. Okie doke. Let's get going with short multiplication. 2 digits by 1 digit first. So again, we have to multiply the tens and the units by that one number, the unit that we're going to do. So let's take an example of 62 times by 6. Okay, so first of all, I'm going to use units. Now, some schools will be teaching this as a ones column, which for grown-ups out there will look like that. Okay, that is quite a new thing, and yeah, it's not something I use particularly, but I know that there are some newer teachers out there who are now calling them tens and the ones columns. So that's what that means. It's just another way of saying units. But I'm going to stick with tens and units. We pop our 62 in our tens and units, and then our 6 that we're multiplying it by goes underneath. We have to put a times sign next to it. If you draw margins in your book, make sure that these sums sit about 2 or 3 squares away from the margin, because the sum is going to grow this way and you don't want it to bash into the margin. Nice straight lines for your answers. And we start with our units. I quite often start by covering up the tens column so that we can only do this one. So that's 2 times 6 or 6 times 2. It doesn't matter which way around you do it. So 6 times 2 is 12. The 2 goes in there, and then the 1 goes on the doorstep, just like it does when we're adding. Sometimes we call that carrying, but I often think, well, where are you carrying your 1 to? What, carrying it? What does it mean? You're not carrying it anywhere. So I call it sitting the number 1 on the doorstep of the tens column, because it's waiting to come into the tens column. And when we get to doing the tens column, then it can come and join its friends in the tens. So again, some teachers will put your little 1 on the doorstep up there, which is okay, but I just prefer it down there. So that's where I put them. So 6 times 2 is 12. And now we must do our tens column, and we still multiply it by 6. So 6 times 6. 6 is a 36. That rhymes nicely. Add the 1 in from the doorstep, 37. Now, you may get a bit confused about which ones to do first. So sometimes I do a little arrow, 6 times 2 first, and then 6 times 6. So you can remember that we do that one, and then we do that one. Okay, good job. I'm going to do one more example of that before we move on to doing it with slightly bigger numbers. I've got a new pack of coloured pens and it's quite fun. I've got all sorts of different colours I can be using. So I'm going to do 84 times 3. So 84, again, you can write your tens and units if it helps you, times 3. And cover up the tens column. We're going to do the units column first. 3 times 4 or 4 times 3. It's 12 again. It's funny, isn't it? We just had a 12. 1 on the doorstep waiting to come into the tens column. Now 3 times 8. 3 times 8 is 24. Remember to bring your 1 in from the doorstep, so that's 25. 252 is your answer. Great stuff. Now you can use that with much bigger numbers. So let's just go straight to a hundreds number, 487 times 5. Again, we need to start miles away from this margin because otherwise we're going to bash into it. So I'm going to start all the way over here. 487 times 5. I love it if children use rulers to do those answer lines. It looks so super smart in your books. 5 times 7. So we're going to do the 7 first, and then the 8, and then the 4. The units, the tens, and then the hundreds. So 5 times 7 is 35. 5 goes down there. The 3, make sure it's under the tens column. Okay, make sure it's not floating around over here somewhere. Tiny weeny, and he sits on the doorstep of the tens column. 5 times 8 is 40. Add the 3 is 43. 4 goes on the doorstep. And then lastly, we do 5 times 4, or 4 times 5 is 20. Add the 4 is 24. So can you see how the sums grow coming out this way? Okay, that is short multiplication. And you can only do this short multiplication when you only have 1 digit to times it all by. As soon as you put 2 digits underneath here, so instead of multiplying by 5, maybe you want to multiply by 35, then we have to use long multiplication. And I'm going to show you how to do that now too. So 2 digits by 2 digits. I don't know why I find it so hard to say 2 digits by 2 digits. So let's do 35 times by 24. Now, tens and units again, 35 and 24. Now this is the bit. Now if you've come across this before, which you might well have done, and you are struggling a little bit with it, or maybe you sometimes get them right and then sometimes you forget to put the magic naught in, or the placeholding 0 as they now call it, I am going to show you my little top tip for getting it right straight away. And that comes now. When you're writing out the sum, I would always set it out first. So we put 1 line there, leave 2 squares, or 2 lines of squares, and then put another line, and there's your answer. And at this point now, we put in what I call our magic 0, which is also called a placeholding 0. And he sits just there. And most of you will know why he's there, because we're going to do 2 times 5 and 2 times 3, but it's actually 20 times 5 and 20 times 3. So that's why that one's there. But if you forget that, then it's a bit like your soggy bottom cake. It turns out to be a complete disaster if you miss out that chap. So top tip is to put him in there right at the beginning, and then when you're in the middle of doing all your timesing sums, you don't forget to add him in. Good. So all set out nicely, ready to go. Now we can do it. We've got to do the units first. So we do 4 times 5 is 20. Tiny weeny 2. Don't be tempted to do it too big because it'll crash into that one. 4 times 3 is 12. Add the 2 from the doorstep is 14. Okay. Now we do our tens. We've already got our magic naught in our placeholder. So that's 2 times 5 is 10. 1 on the doorstep, and 2 times 3 is 6. Add the 1 is 7. So 2 times 35 is 70, but 20 times 35 is 700. Then we can add them up together. 0 add 0 is 0, 4 add 0 is 4, and 1 add 7 is 8. 840. And if you're doing this in a test situation, you will see there's about 3 marks for it. So it's really important that you get all of these sections right, because this will be 1 mark, this will be 1 mark, and that will be 1 mark. So even if you don't get the adding up right, you can still score marks by getting some of your timesing right. Good, I think I'll do one more example of that so that we've got it locked in our heads. 82 times 54. 4. I just make these numbers up as we go along. So 82 times 54. 82 times 54. Have I left myself enough space? I think I have. So what's my golden rule? Set it out first. So 2 lines, then another answer line, then another, just leave this line for the answer. So you've got your 2 lines here, and you must put in your magic 0. I give him a smiley face because then I know that he's slightly different. He's a bit special. Right. So 4 times 2 is 8. I've changed colours again, not quite sure why. 4 times 8 is 32. So that's the answer to our first line, 328. Now we move to our tens column, and we've already got our placeholder, so we can go straight into 5 times 2 is 10, 1 on the doorstep, 5 times 8 is 40, add the 1 is 41. Add sign, 8 add 0 is 8, 2 add 0 is 2, 3 add 1 is 4, and 4 add 0 is also 4. 4,428. Okay, so you can make these more tricky by making this first number into a 3-digit number or even a 4-digit number. Certainly you will have to do that in year 6, making that into a 4-digit number. But we don't usually go further than multiplying by a 2-digit number up to year 6. That comes a bit later on. Okay, everybody, I hope you enjoyed that. And just remember my top tip, which is to set it out and put in this placeholder first. And then you will never forget to add him in. Okay, guys, well done. I hope you're learning a lot this week. And if you would like to see more, there's more coming up on, oh, we're doing division next. So we'll see you for that. Okay, take care, everybody. Bye.